All right, so this video is going to be about news events, and this is the intro to fundamental analysis when it comes to trading Forex. So the site that I have up is one of the sites that I use all the time when it comes to looking at news events and game planning trades around them. Is forexfactory.com. So you would simply go to forexfactory.com and let's just go to the homepage so that way you can see it. It's going to bring up, today's events, and you'll see the news events for today. And this is just going to be all over the world. You got Japanese news, you got Euro news, you got British news, Canadian news, United States news, Australian news, New Zealand news. So each one of these news events are going to affect the currency that they have. Just like if a company for stocks had great quarterly reports, it would bring that stock up. So the same thing happens with currencies. So if we go back, actually see if it'll go back to where I had it. Probably not. So give me 1 second. Week. All right, perfect. What's the next one? No, it's this one. Okay. So there's three things that you want to know specifically when it comes to looking at news events. It's one, you want to notice the folders right here, these folder icons. And other Forex sites will use some sort of icon to specify how serious a news event or how big the news is. So for Forex Factory, they use folders, and the yellow folders, just like what it says low impact and expected. The orange folders, it's going to be medium impact expected. So basically for their currency pair. And then the red folder is going to be high impact expected to the currency pairs involved. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you're going to want to notice is the the forecast. So for news events that haven't been released yet, you're not going to see the actual. These are past news events. So that's why you see the actual report. But a lot of times you'll see the forecast. And that's really important because that's going to tell you how to really quantify the differential between the news that comes out and what was forecasted to come out. So, for example, if we use this core CPI year over year for the British pound, you'll see that the forecast was 1.3, but what actually happened was 1.8. So basically, the report was better than expected by a decent amount. So had this been like a red impact, the combination of having a big differential and a red folder would have moved the currency pair, made the British pound much stronger because of that. But the combination of this might give it a small spark because this is low impact, and the news event, was a good news event over what was forecasted. So the third thing that you want to know is that when the news events happen, that the market is right before the news events happen, the market moves a little bit weird. So it might consolidate or it might stop moving along with a pattern and just kind of be a little bit sporadic right before that news event. I'm talking 5 to 30 minutes before that news event, especially if it's a bigger news event. So this is how you really judge it as far as using this for trading. And we're going to look at some examples of what happened in the markets. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this US dollar crude oil inventories that happened on August 19th, 2020. So if we look at this, you can even open up here and it'll give you little articles and you can make it a little bit bigger and read the entire related stories versus, and then it'll also give you some expectations for this particular news event and where it's coming from. So there's a couple things to look at. So what it's telling you is that one, this is United States news, but it's also going to affect oil levels because this is crude oil inventories. So it's going to affect both the United States dollar and the price of oil during this time. So if we look at 9:30 a.m. U.S. time, I think we're on Eastern on Forex Factory default. So if we look at that and we look at the report, they see that it was going to be negative 2.9 million barrels. That was going to be the inventory, negative 2.9 million. And what was actual was the 1.6 million. So this move was less than expected. So they were actually expecting, this is a little bit tricky one. They were actually expecting a negative result. They got a positive result. So let's see how this affects the market. So if we go, this is United States. I think the easiest one to use would be Australian dollar, US dollar. It's just the easiest one to use. Actually, we could use Euro USD. Any USD pair will work, but let's be specific. So the news happened it was August 19th. Yeah, August 19th, 2020. So if we go back here and go to August 19th, 2020, and we go at the hour of 9 o'clock. So let's actually break it down in 30 minutes because it happened at 9:30. So August 19th, this is the 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. This is what happened at 9 o'clock. So you had a small move here, and then the news release happened at 9:30. So the news release candle was this candle here. And you may be asking, if you're a beginner, if the news was actually good, why did Euro USD go down? Because when you're looking at pairs, you're actually looking at two sides of a coin. So when the United States dollar gets weaker, so let's backtrack so that way everybody understands. So you have whatever versus United States dollar, and then you have United States dollar versus whatever. When there's great news or positive news, let's not use great news, let's do positive news. Anything with the US dollar as second currency, so the later currency, like the first example, the XXX versus United States dollar, as second currency, that pair is going to go down. US dollar as first pair will go up. So look at 9:30. Like it said on here, it's going to have a medium impact expected. And this was actually a really good example because it was looking for a negative result. So the forecast was something bad. They were forecasting something bad. But what actually happened was it wasn't as bad as they thought. They thought they were going to be down 2.9 million barrels. They were only down 1.6. Even though this shows up as a red number, it only shows up as a red number because it's a negative number, not because it's not positive. It's showing as a negative number. But because the forecast was negative, and this was a negative as well, but it was a better number than the forecast, this was a positive news event. So just to recap, it was a negative forecast, a very negative forecast, and the forecast wasn't as bad as expected. So that means it was positive, even though this was a negative number. So that means the United States dollar got stronger, thus making this pair go down because the United States dollar is the second currency. So when that gets stronger, it's going to go down. If we use a United States dollar as a first currency, so let's say United States Japanese yen, and we use August the 19th at 9:30, it would be this pair here. So it went up. That was the candle. That was the 9:30 candle here. So this candle was a 9:30 candle and it went up. You look at another one, the Swiss franc, 9:30 candle. Where is it at? 9:30 candle was right here. That's the 9:30 candle. Because it went up because the United States dollar was the first currency pair. Let's look at one more. Look at another example. So if we go down to, close that out, X that out, go down to another one. Let's look at a red impact news. So this is going to be another lesson within Excel. Multiple news events around the same time. So this is the Euro news, and it was almost five news events within the same time. Higher, medium to high impact. So if we look at this, you see the first one is French Flash Services PMI. They were expecting 56.3, but what they got was 51.9. So this had a big differential negative because it was down by a decent amount. The next one, manufacturing, they were expecting 53. This was at 49, two negatives. Then you have German manufacturing, which is also part of the European Union. They were expecting 52.2. They're at 53. It was positive, but by a small amount. So this is still a net negative environment because you had two negative amounts by a decent amount and one positive amount by a small amount. So the negative is still winning here. Look at the services. 55.3 is the expectation. They were at 50.8. Another decent sized negative return. Manufacturing, another manufacturing, 52.7. This was 51.7, another negative, and one more, which was also a decent negative. So what is that going to tell me? That's going to tell me that the euro is getting weaker. And this was probably a good down move for the euro because this happened at 215. It was more firepower at 230 and even more firepower to go down at 3. So this was setting up for a nice selling move on euro pair. So if we go to August 21st on Friday morning, we should see some evidence of that. So let's look at euro United States dollar. August 21st. So August 21st, which would be here. Oh, look, there's a down move here. And I want to say, yeah, it should be Central Time. So 2:15. So the 2 o'clock candle base is what we're going to look at. 2 o'clock in the morning. This is military time. So 2 o'clock in the morning, bam. 2 o'clock in the morning, the first news release here sent the pair going down. And then the second news release, still still went down. And then the final one, another big one at 3 o'clock, which had the big differentials of a pair, sent it further down. So the euro was weaker. So that was the 2:30 or the 3 o'clock candle. So the news that brought the candles that much distance. So it brought the euro down that much distance. We can use another European pair. Let's use EJ. 21st. August 21st, 2 o'clock is when it starts. Look, 2 o'clock. Starts selling. And then 2:30, 3 o'clock, it sells even more because of news. But, not necessarily to worry about news. News is just fuel to me. It's just fuel. I already have an idea of what might happen based off of structure. News is just one of my mentors says, news is an excuse to put price, to continue making price go in the expected agenda. So as you see here, price was already in a selling environment before the news came out. The news just added on to that. And a lot of times that would happen because news a lot of times follows market structure. But this video should let you know how news can impact the charts. So I hope you understand, a little bit more about how to use the news events, but always be careful when you're trading and make sure you always have an idea when the next news release for the pair that you're trading is about to come out. So that way you can protect your accounts ahead of time.